In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to model the lid and then prepare it for the laser cutter. So this is where we left off last time. Now in this case, what we want to do is we actually want to hide everything that we've created so far, except we want to turn our original sketch on. We're going to create a new sketch for our lid. We're not actually going to add it to this sketch. So we'll go new sketch. We're going to sketch off the top plane. And we want a rectangle. So R for rectangle is the keyboard shortcut. Now I'm not going to do this one parametrically, and for a range of reasons. You could do it parametrically, but the actual formulas would start to get a little bit complicated. And for such a simple component, it's getting a little bit unnecessary. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something that fits in between these housings here, but also has a little bit extra out here so I can sort of grab onto something to open and close it. So I'll come in really close so I can get my millimeter grid showing up. And I basically want to go out from this point here at the back of that housing. That's my first corner. And I want it to go all the way across, in which case it's going to be 98 millimeters. But of course, in the real world, this measurement will change because ultimately the lid should be, in terms of width, it should be the width from the bottom of the housing to the bottom of the housing minus 1 to 2 millimeters. You need a little bit of wiggle room there. So I'm going to go 98, tab, and 205. And then enter. So I've got that rectangle there for that. Now before I sort of finish this, because obviously this is pretty simple, the other thing that I want to do is I want to create, have the laser cut a hole for my finger. So I'm just going to use a center diameter circle and I'm going to line it up somewhere along this center line here. And I want my diameter to be about 20 millimeters. I mean, you can modify it if you wish, but that's probably, pretty good. The other thing to do is obviously, where am I going to have this? I mean, I don't want to have it back here. It kind of makes sense to have it out here, but you also don't want to have it too close to that edge there because it starts getting weak. So maybe somewhere around, so it will sit somewhere around in the middle of that, or you might even want to line it up off that edge there. I'm going to put it there. Now I'll finish the sketch. Okay, so to make things a bit easier, I'm just going to turn the first sketch off, leave this one open, and I'm going to extrude it to give it its thickness, but I'm also going to locate it in the project. So we'll go for extrude, we'll select this, and there's a few things we've got to do here. Now I'm going to actually go minus 3 millimeters for the thickness. So we've got that. But the other thing that we want here is we want to change this to a new component and we want to offset it. And our offset is going to be the depth of the box. So we can see that parameter coming up. Now our housing is cut 5 millimeters down from the top. So minus 5. We've got our new component. And we will now say OK. Now just before we do any more, let's just check to make sure that is actually in the right place. So we can just turn our side on, and I mean, if we want, we can even orbit around and have a look and just make sure that is definitely sitting right in that housing perfectly. And you can see it is. Now again, like I said, in the real world, you want to have actually a little bit of a gap there. Okay, so we've got that. Let's turn that side off again. Now the only other thing I want to do now is I do want to just curve these corners. It just sort of gives it a nice softer look. But the other thing too, particularly in the back corners here where that goes back into the housing, it's actually good to have a little curve on it, just in case if there's a little bit of glue in the corner or they don't line up perfectly. It just makes it a little bit more forgiving. So what we want to do here is we're going to basically put in some fillets. So you can see the keyboard shortcut is the letter F. So we'll go fillet, and I'll start with the front fillet, because they're going to be different radiuses. So I'll just press escape. Oh no, I just want to pan it so I can see both of those corners. Escape. I want to select that one and that one. And I mean, I can do this two ways, but I'm going to give that a radius of 10 millimeters. So I can do it this way. I can, and generally when you're designing, this is actually a good way to get a feel for what looks good. I'm going to go 10 millimeters and then go OK. I'm not changing any other parameters there. Go back to fit. Okay, so we'll do the back ones now. So we might as well just flick around. I'll just pan up like that. Escape. Back into here. So we'll go fillet again. It just keeps hiding it there, unfortunately. There we go. So we select this one, select this one. And in this case, I want these to be about 4 millimeters. So it doesn't snap to 4, so I'm just going to change that myself and go OK. So we'll go back to our home position. We can see it there. Let's turn everything else on. So we can basically see that's now done. Now we'll prepare our lid for laser cutting. Now you see over here I've already renamed it. And just to make things easier, we'll just again hide all of these other pieces. And we want to create a new sketch. And we're going to actually sketch off the lid here. Then we'll go create, project, project. And here we basically just want to select the geometry that we want to project and turn into our file for laser cutting. Now this is a pretty simple file. So basically all we want to do is just hover until we've got all of our geometry showing up as red, left click, and then go OK. And what you'll see here is you'll see all of the geometry that we want will turn purple. If we go finish sketch, you'll see we've got a new sketch up here, and we can actually just hide our lid. So you can see the geometry there. Okay, so then finally, all we need to do is select our sketch, right click, save as DXF. And what I want to do, want you to do, is just give it your name and call it lid. And then just save it to a known location. I'm just going to save this to my desktop now. So when we start in Illustrator, we want to create a new file, but we might as well create a template for the laser cutter while we're there. So new file, we'll come into here and we'll call, our preset will be laser cutter. We want to change this from points to millimeters, and we want this, the width to be 800 and the height to be 500, which is the size of the bed on the laser cutter. Our color mode, we want RGB. We can leave everything else the same for now. Then you'll get to this screen. Now, if your screen does not look like this, you just need to go up to Window, Workspace, and just go to, I've just got it on the Essentials screen right now. Okay, so we've got our blank artboard. Now we'll go up to File, Open. Now I've saved mine to my desktop, so it's there. So I'll open that up. Now, what we want here is we want to make sure that it's original size and it does not scale. And then we go OK. So you'll see here, we've now got two files open. Now for this simple sort of thing, this is kind of like a bit of an extra step, but particularly when we get into projects where we've got lots of different things that we need to align and set out onto the laser template, this method becomes very useful. Okay, so now that we're here, we want to select this and we just go Control C or Command C. So we're basically going to copy and paste. We're going to paste it across here, and then we might want to locate it somewhere. You know, usually I'll try to locate it up in the top corner there. Okay, so we've got that in here. Now the other thing too that is very useful to check, we can actually see that it's kept our measurements the same. The other thing too that's really useful right now is, let's say for example you've made the box and you've already created this, but actually this measurement here or this measurement here needs to change slightly, and that's usually because of changes to the geometry through the actual physical manufacturing process. So for example, the one that you might want to change the most is you might want to change this dimension here, the 98 millimeters. So the box might be a little bit wider or less wide than you need. So that it doesn't change the length here, and sorry, it's set this up as width and height, but we know that that is actually the width across the box, and this is the length of the lid. So we just make sure that that is not linked. Okay, so we want to make sure that that's the icon that we see there, and I can change that. Let's say, for example, I needed to change that to 96 millimeters, and you'll see that it's very, very slightly changed it up there. Okay, I'm just going to change that back. Now, in terms of getting this ready for the laser, what we need to do is we need to make sure that all of the geometry, in this case that we want to cut, is selected. So I've selected the outside there, press my shift key, so I've selected all of the geometry. And I want to change my stroke, so that's the actual line, to, and it needs to be RGB. So generally what it'll come up as a default, you'll come up with a CMYK color palette, which is ideal for printing, but it's not how the laser operates. So again, all we've got to do, just go to the color mixer, go here, just select RGB color, and to cut, it's R255 G0B0. Okay, so we now basically have the color that is telling the laser to cut. There are other settings for engraving and for other features on the laser. So that's like for black and also for blue. The other thing that we need to do is we need to change our stroke to 0.01. And again, that is a key for the, or a clue for the laser, so that it knows exactly what it's going to be doing. All right, so if we click away, that's basically almost invisible, very hard to see. So I'm just going to zoom in on that, just so you can actually see that it's there. There we go. You can see a very, very, very fine red line, and that's because this is a very high resolution monitor that this is being videoed on. But also for the laser to actually cut, it needs to have on it a very, very thin red line. Okay, I'm just going to show you one other thing that if you want to do, and it's just a very simple way to put your initials or a monogram or something like that onto the lid. So for example here, I'm going to use the type tool. I'm just going to type my initials, DMM, press escape, and then I'm just going to find the, just going a bit closer, just so I can move it. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my initials and just hide them up in a corner there. Now, because that's black and you can see here it's got fill and it's got no stroke, that's going to engrave my initials into the lid there. Now, once you've done that, you can save that somewhere, because later on what we're going to do is we're going to put all of these files together, and so that we can cut everybody's lids out at the same time.